Hello and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's Thursday Thoughts, in which I discuss my reading progress and my thoughts and impressions of the books I have been reading this past week. I finished The Red Rose of Anjou by Jean Plaidy, the 13th book in her Plantagenet series. The Red Rose of Anjou refers to Margaret of Anjou, a French princess, the niece of Charles, the French king. She is chosen to marry the English king, Henry VI, with the object of bringing the 100 Years' War between England and France to an end. The 100 Years' War concerned the claim of England's king to the throne of France. Margaret is beautiful, intelligent and fiercely ambitious. She comes from a line of strong and powerful women, and she is the same. Margaret, because of her assertive personality, effectively came to rule England through her devoted husband. Her husband, Henry VI, son of the great Henry V, the hero of Agincourt, is a peace-loving man who wants nothing but peace and to enjoy a quiet life of reading and contemplation. He hated war and instead devoted his time to promoting education and a love of learning. He founded the famous English college Eton in 1440 and established King's College, Cambridge in 1441, and no doubt under his influence Margaret founded Queen's College, Cambridge in 1448. But it was under Margaret's influence that Henry was persuaded to give up Maine in France, and it was this event that led to the end of the 100 Years' War and effectively ended all English claims to the throne of France. It was due to actions such as this and to her imperious and domineering manner that Margaret was detested by Londoners and by some of the lords who opposed her rule. The Red Rose was also the symbol of the House of Lancaster, from whom Henry was descended. The Duke of York, who thought that his claim to the English throne was stronger than Henry's, had the White Rose as his symbol. This clash between the two opposing claimants to the throne became known as the War of the Roses. An insurrectionist by the name of Jack Cade, pretending to be a relative of the Duke of York, who was in Ireland at the time, sought to overthrow Henry and to put Richard, the Duke of York, on the throne. The insurrection failed, and Richard hastened to the king to assure him of his loyalty. Later, however, Richard, Duke of York, did try to usurp the throne with the aid of the infamous kingmaker, the Earl of Warwick. Richard failed in his bid and was killed while making war on Henry. Warwick switched his allegiance to Richard's son, Edward, now the young Duke of York. The Earl of Warwick was the richest and most powerful man in England, and with his help and support overthrew Henry, and Edward came to the throne as Edward IV. Henry VI's 40 years' reign came to an end, and he spent the last 10 years of his life incarcerated in the Tower of London, while Margaret and his son, also Edward, the Prince of Wales, fled to France. Eventually, in trying to regain the throne, Edward, the Prince of Wales, was killed, the old king was assassinated, and Margaret was taken prisoner and then repatriated back to France, where she died not long after. So Edward IV, the son of the Duke of York, was firmly established on the English throne. But that was not quite the end of the War of the Roses. That is the story that Jean Plaidy tells in the 14th and last of her Plantagenet series, The Sun in Splendour. I read 7 short stories from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's collection called Tales of Terror and Tales of Mystery. I read the 7 stories in the Tales of Mystery section. The first story is called The Lost Special. A special is a train that has been hired by a rich individual for his own use. One such was hired in Liverpool by a Monsieur Louis Caratal, together with a friend who was obviously his protector, to take them to London. On the way, the train mysteriously disappears. When the train does not arrive at the appointed time in Manchester, inquiries are made at every station along the line to ascertain whether the train had passed through. 4 out of 5 stations confirm its passage through their station, but between the 4th and 5th stations the train had vanished. And in spite of an investigation up and down the line, no sign of the train was ever found. 8 years later, the mystery is solved by means of a letter written by a man from Paris who has been condemned for murder. The letter details clearly what happened to the train and why it happened. So what happened was, but you'll have to read the story to find out. The second story is called The Beetle Hunter. The story concerns a young doctor who answers the following advert. Wanted for 1 or more days the services of a medical man. It is essential that he should be a man of strong physique, of steady nerves, and of a resolute nature. Must be an entomologist, coleopterist preferred. Our young doctor, of course, fits all the criteria, and he needs all those qualities when he's introduced to the foremost beetle expert in the world, who frankly is off his rocker. What happens next is, but you'll have to read the story to find out. The third story is called The Man with the Watches. A man is found dead on a train with his pocket full of watches. There are no marks in his clothes and nothing else on his person to identify him. Furthermore, 3 passengers who were seen to get on the train have disappeared, not having alighted from the train on arrival at its destination. Where have they gone, and who is the dead man? To find out, you'll have to read the story. The fourth story is called The Japanned Box. What is the secret of the Japanned Box? 3 years before the opening of the story, the owner of this box had lost his beloved wife. He'd been a heavy drinker and somewhat wild, but his wife had been a calming influence on him. Now he is a recluse, but is believed by his servants to be having a clandestine affair because they often hear a woman's voice coming from his apartments. The startling denouement of this story comes about quite by accident. What happened was, but you'll have to read the story to find out. The fifth story is called The Black Doctor. An Argentinian doctor moves to a small English village where he becomes a respected member of the community. He falls in love with a local beauty and she with him, but inexplicably, after receiving a letter from Argentina, he breaks off the engagement and decides to give up his practice. But before he can do this, he's found dead in his house. The suspicion falls on the brother of the young woman, who had threatened revenge for the insult to his sister. At the ensuing murder trial, a startling and unexpected revelation provides an entirely new direction to the outcome of the trial. What happened was, but you'll have to read the story to find out. The sixth story is called The Jew's Breastplate. The story concerns a rare museum piece, believed to be the original Urim and Thummim, the breastplate worn by the high priest of the Jews. The caretaker, Professor Andreas, has decided to retire after 20 years, and the position is taken over by a younger man. After taking over his role, the young man receives an anonymous letter warning him of the danger of theft, but it is obvious that it is from Professor Andreas. When he goes to confront him, it is only to be told that he had gone to Scotland. That night, 4 of the jewels of the Urim and Thummim are found to have had their clasps tampered with, although the 12 precious jewels in the breastplate are still intact. There is a mystery how anyone could have done this undetected by the night guard. The following night, another 4 of the jewels are discovered to have their clasps tampered with, but the jewels are still in situ. The third night, he decides to lie in wait and to see if anything transpires. The ending is a surprise, so you'll have to read the story to find out what it is. The final story is called The Nightmare Room. A beautiful but dangerous woman is being confronted by her husband. He believes she is trying to poison him, but because she is having an affair with another man. The other man appears on the scene and the two men decide to draw cards to see who will have the woman. Just then a third man appears on the scene and we discover that things are not what they seem. To find out the truth of the nightmare room, you'll have to read the story. So that's all folks, but I'll be back soon with another Booktube video.